Hey guys, it's Dawn here, and today I want to share a book that I found. This book is 178 years old. It was published in 1842. So yeah, 178 years, and there is a lot of data and information in old books like this. There's a lot of old data and knowledge that is great because they're full of common sense stuff. And that's kind of lacking nowadays when we're fed only the information that they think that we should know or whatever. So I like to just have a thorough research, and that includes looking through all materials possible. This book is very interesting. Mine is in horrid condition. And if you like, the old book smells, this smells very strongly of old book. It has great things in it, so you can purchase this book as well. It has this big old diagram inside. I'm not going to open it up because these pages are so fragile and it's already falling apart. This book was very, very well used. This is the the Farmer's Complete Farrier, comprising a historical description of all the varieties of that noble and useful animal, the horse, giving instructions in all the things that relate to him, his rearing, feeding, training, fattening, and treatment, with a description of all the diseases to which he is liable, their causes, symptoms, treatment, and the best remedies to be applied to restore the animal to health, accompanied by the blah blah blah, with an appendix containing additional number and original and selected receipts for the cure of the various diseases in horses, cattle, sheep, hogs, dogs, and poultry, comprising everything necessary to be known in the relation to their rearage and treatment and cures of the various diseases to which they are severally liable. Selected, compiled, translated from the best German and English works extant on this subject, with numerous editions, etc., by I. Daniel Rupp, published by Gilbert Hills of Lancaster, Pennsylvania, 1842. So there's everything in here, because back in the day, the Farrier also did some general veterinary medical procedures. They just kind of did everything back then, right? So, and basically what it says, even, and they knew even back then, was that shoes can be harmful. You're putting something metal and something restrictive onto a living piece of the body that is meant to absorb shock and cushion and flex and bend and twist and expand and contract, and it has all this movement, but you're putting a very stiff metal piece and nailing those into the hoof, and those nail holes are just harmful because they are weakening, and they open up they're weakening the structure, and they open up the structure to diseases like thrush and infections and stuff like that. And oftentimes when you drive the nail, it's from the bottom up. Well, what's at the bottom of the hoof is a lot of bacteria and fungus, and now you're taking that and you're driving it up. It's not like we're disinfecting the bottom first before we take this foreign object and drive it way up into, and then then people wonder why there's white line disease all inside the lamina of the hoof, between the hoof wall. And you've seen pictures where they cut out the hoof wall, they take off huge chunks of the hoof wall, and the whole innards is all black with thrush. And there's pictures of thrush around, each nail hole has a radius around it of black thrush, and it's all centered around the nail holes. And when you take off a shoe, the smell and all of that stuff, it is very common sense, very logical, and something that you can see is that shoes, they have a big con to it. Their pro is that they can extend the life of the horse. They can be completely customized with a skilled blacksmither, farrier, completely customized and stuff. But if you take shortcuts and you don't do it right, and you get lazy in it or whatever, then problems can and will occur. And these are all things that everybody should be aware of and take responsibility for, to be aware of it so that you know how to mitigate it, how to stay on top of issues before they become big, just be able to take care of your horse. And this is the type of knowledge that isn't common anymore. The horse owners out there do not know this stuff. When back in the day, there was a simple book that outlined everything for them. So here is the section for directions on shoeing. This is on page 226, section 274. Directions for shoeing. Shoeing a horse, as most commonly practiced, says White, has a destructive tendency and produces a variety of diseases. Right there, they knew it way back then. Although we believe that the proper shoeing of a horse is of the utmost importance, and with the view to throw out some hints to it, we have added a few sections. Still, we cannot believe that the injury done to horses in shoeing is not to the extent that White and others have fancied. And then they go on to talking about the different types of shoes and how to shoe. Here's one that is the preparation of the foot, section 276, page 227. We will suppose that the horse is sent to the shop to be shod. If the master would occasionally accompany him there, he would find it much to his advantage. The old shoe must be first taken off. We have something to observe even on this. It was retained on the foot by the ends of the nails being twisted off, turned down, and clenched. These clenches should be first raised, which the smith seldom takes the trouble thoroughly to do. But after going carelessly around the crust and raising one or two of the clenches, he takes hold first of one heel of the shoe and then of the other, and by a violent wrench separates them from the foot, and by a third wrench applied to the middle of the shoe he tears it off. By this means he must enlarge every nail hole and weaken the future hold, and sometimes tear off portions of the crust and otherwise injure the foot. The horse generally shows by his flinching that he suffers by the violence with which this preliminary operation is performed. The clenches should always be raised or filed off, and where the foot is tender or the horse is to be examined for lameness, each nail should be partly punched out. Many a stub is left in the crust, the source of future annoyance, when this unnecessary violence is used. Then it goes on how to pair and further care, blah, blah, blah. Section 227, the putting on of the shoe, page 229. The foot being thus prepared, the smith looks about for a shoe. He should select one that as nearly as possible fits the foot or be altered to the foot. He will sometimes care little about this, for he can easily alter the foot to the shoe. The toe knife is a very convenient instrument for him, and plenty of horn can be struck off with it or removed by the rasp to make the foot as small as the shoe, while he cares little, although by the destructive method, the crust is materially thinned where it should receive the nail, and the danger of puncture is increased, and the danger of pressure upon the sole is increased, and a foot so artificially diminished in size will soon grow over the shoe to the hazard of considerable or permanent lameness. A shoe thinner at the heel than at the toe by letting down the heel too low is apt to produce sprain of the flexor tendon, and a shoe thicker at the heels than at the toe is fit only to elevate the frog to the destruction of its function and to its own certain disease, and also to press upon, batter, and bruise that part of the foot which is soonest and most destructively injured. Then it goes to talk about calkins, clips, the hinder shoe or hinder shoe, different kinds of shoe, the bar shoe, tips, and the expanding shoe. Now, the expanding shoe, it says here, section 284, page 233, our subject would not be complete if we did not describe the supposed expanding shoe. It is either seated or concave like the common shoe, with a joint at the toe, which by the natural expansion of the foot is said to be permitted and the injurious consequences of shoeing prevented. There is, however, this radical defect in the jointed shoe that the nails occupy the same situation as in the common shoe, and prevent, as do the nails of the common shoe, the gradual expansion of the sides and quarters, and allow only of a hinge-like motion at the toe. This is a most imperfect accommodation of the expansion of the foot to the action of its internal parts, and even this accommodation is afforded in the slightest possible degree, or rather can scarcely be afforded at all. Either the nails fix the sides and quarters as in the common shoe, and then the joint at the toe is useless, or if that joint merely opens like a hinge, the nail holes in the shoe can no longer correspond with those in the quarters, which are unequally expanding at every point, and therefore there will be more stress on the crust at these holes, which will not only enlarge them and destroy the fixed attachment of the shoe to the hoof, but will often tear away portions of the crust. This has, in many cases, been found to be the effect of the jointed shoe. The sides and quarters of the foot have been broken until it has become difficult to find nail hole. This shoe, to answer the intended purpose, should consist of many joints running along the sides and quarters, which would make it too complicated and expensive and frail for general use. While the shoe is to be attached to the foot by nails, we must be content with the concave seated one, taking care to place the nail holes as far from the heels, and particularly from the inner heel, as the state of the foot and the nature of the work will admit, and where the country is not too heavy nor the work too severe, even omitting the nails on the inner side of the foot. Shoes nailed on the outer side and the toe are more secure than some would imagine, while the inner quarter will be left free to prevent contraction or to arrest its progress. The attempt, however, to lessen the evils produced by shoeing is most praiseworthy. Every contrivance permanently to fix the shoe on the foot without the use of nails has failed. So even back then, they were trying to figure out a better way to protect the foot without nail holes. Excuse me. But every attempt has failed. But now we come to our time and we have hoof boots, which are a godsend because they do work. You just got to find the right fit. And that is often difficult because the hoof is a living thing that changes constantly changing. From the beginning of the trim cycle to the end of the trim cycle, that hoof is changed. And then different trimmers, or different seasons, the hoof is constantly changing. So it is difficult, but it's not impossible. You got to be open to being able to make modifications to the boot, to take a rafts and help it yourself, or to own several different pairs of boots that you can switch back and forth from depending on what the shoe, what the hoof needs and how it's shaped at that time. But it can be done, and we are lucky that we have that option. Now, here's a section, page 199, section 252, about narrow heels. Narrow heels is a disease that often produces lameness without the master of the horse knowing from what cause it proceeds, often examining his legs, cleaning his hooves, paring the frogs of his feet, etc., without paying any respect to the shape of the horse's heels, which are always close together and unnaturally shaped. A horse with narrow heels is unfit to travel, as he is tender-footed and goes cramped, short, and is always subject to lameness, more or less. Narrow heels is the effect of shoes being permitted to remain on a horse that is not used for 3 or 4 months, which cause the heels to grow together, pinching and confining the cornet. The cure is simple though tedious. Having his shoes taken off and his feet cut down as small as possible without injuring the quick, then turn him out upon a marsh or low ground where his hooves may be constantly moist for 3 to 4 months, and his heels will expand, his hooves again assume their natural shape, and the horse will be fit for any kind of service. So take that for what it's worth. Those were some of the interesting points in regards to hooves. There are a lot more, but I don't want to take the time to read the whole book to you. You're welcome to, get one for yourself and take a look, because it's just very interesting that this is stuff that was common sense and common knowledge back then, and even way 178 years ago, right? And these are things that a lot of people nowadays are just discovering, and it's not new information. That's, I guess, my point of this post, is that this is not new information. This is stuff that we have known, or humans have known forever, and they have been trying to combat it, and they were trying even back then to figure out how to lessen the damaging effects of shoes, which are boots. Our solution now are boots. They talk about, going barefoot will reverse the effect of shoes. A lot of other farrier books, they do recommend, a lot of farriers recommend to have out of 12 months of the year, 6 months should be barefoot. So to recover from the effects of shoeing. And that is not controversial. That is fact. Do some horses need to be shod? Sure. Whether it be because of just how they live and what the owner is capable and able to do, or the professionals available in that area, or whatever the cause may be, yeah, that is probably true. The only thing is that you need to be aware and educated enough to be able to try and find the most the best professional for the job. You saw that even back then they struggled with farriers that were insensitive to what the horse needed, and so they were saying, hey, like when you put on the shoe, you got to be careful about the nail holes, and you can't wrench it and all that stuff. Let's see. And I mean, that is a problem that has been there for hundreds of years. So that is no different, but we have access to the internet and knowledge and data, and we can share that more readily now. And for some reason, it's like, I don't know. Okay, I'm going to stop ranting about that. But anyways, so the whole point is, this isn't new data, all right? This is fact. And the importance of recognizing that where the problems lie is not to point fingers or lay blame. It's to make it so that we can be more aware, so we can stay on top of it. Because if we are not aware that there is white line disease, and thrush can cause horrid issues, and we're not, if we don't stay on top of those things and the importance of those things, that is when it gets out of control. And how many horses, it always seems that horses that are shod back to back, year and year again, it seems to take about 10, 12, 15 years for those horses to develop navicular. It's almost like clockwork. And it is so common that people are just, now they just say a horse's professional career ends at, 10 years, 9 years, 12 years. They're already considered old, when that and actually does not have to be the case. There's a horse 28 years old, doing completing and being top in the top 100-mile endurance race. 10 years old shouldn't be the end of their useful life at all. They can still be extremely competitive into their, late 20s, 30s, maybe even more. We just have to be able to be addressing those issues that are making them break down earlier, sooner. All right, I had more to say, but now I completely forgot and I blanked out. So anyways, hope that was interesting to you guys, and I will talk to you guys later. Thanks for watching. Bye.